Dan Le Batard is highly questionable. He joins us now on the Dan Patrick Show. Let me start with the most important question here, Dan. Heat was great. Heat were great last night.
I still don't know. I've been working in this market. I think my editors have to change that almost every time I run the Heat column.
I think your headline in the Greg Cody's headline has Heat was, not Heat were. So is that your AP style book that you guys go by?
I send my columns in, and I hope somebody else protects it.
All right, well, that's all I needed from you, Dan. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I'm glad I could help you, Dan, with a totally useless response. That really is. You just shamed me. Way to start an interview. You're an expert interviewer who knows to start soft at the beginning before you get to the hard stuff. You've embarrassed me right to start.
What was the difference with Wade last night as opposed to a couple of games ago when it was all melting down?
Are you going to ask any easy questions? I don't know. I would assume, Dan, that he was hurt in Game 3 because none of us have ever seen him play that way. And immediately, what's interesting about this team is the conversation immediately goes to, is he old? Is he done? Do they need to trade him? It happens like that around here where you get old in a day. You get old with a loss. And, he clearly wasn't right. He didn't have any spring in his legs. And I've never seen a superstar play that bad. He got a needle in his knee. He got his knee drained, and I would assume that he was just, he wasn't healthy. He wasn't himself. I can't believe that he finished the Pacers with 40-10 after that performance.
But when did we get to the point as a sports society that it was next day? If the Heat lose, then you got to trade Wade. We've done this with the Lakers. It's in the moment that we want to change something right away that all of a sudden, if they got bounced by the Pacers, Dwayne Wade's on another team next year.
Yeah, I thought it was a lack of perspective that had to do specifically with the Heat, just because what surrounds this team is totally abnormal, and it's totally abnormal on steroids. But even Magic Johnson, who has worked for the Lakers, does that every time they lose. Every time they lose, he's trading or firing somebody, and which surprises me, given that he's a sports symbol who worked for the franchise. So I don't. When it comes to this basketball team down here, I have never seen ever covering sports in 25 years such a lack of perspective. And I think what it has to do with is that you have an expectation level that is insane. No team in the playoffs, right? I think you'd agree with this. There's no team in basketball that plays with the kind. Everybody's trying. The Spurs are trying to win a championship. The Celtics are trying to win a championship. Nobody plays with this kind of pressure on them.
But can they possibly be an underdog at any point during the playoffs now?
Well, I think they are now until Bosh gets back. I don't think that people think they can beat San Antonio and Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
But this changes. You know what's funny about this, Dan? This changes. I mean, 3 games ago, the idea that I would be making the Heat a favorite, you would have laughed in my face, braying laughter, if I would have said 3 games ago, the Heat are a finals favorite. And it seems to change from game to game with this team.
He's Dan Le Batard, Miami Herald columnist, also highly questionable on ESPN2. Joining us, Dan Patrick Show. Chris Bosh update. What's the latest?
We don't know. This organization is very tight with its information. There was very little gets out from under Pat Riley's watch. You see stories broken on other organizations. These guys won't even talk about injuries. Dan, Mike Miller, his foot appeared to fall off. The way he's been walking, he looks like a 100-year-old, person who has worked in the fields.
He reminded me of Kurt Gibson going to the plate against Dennis Eckersley.
Yeah, he's playing every game that way. The only part of Mike Miller's body that's working correctly at the moment is his right ear. Everything else on his body is broken. And when you ask him, Mike, what's wrong with you? I'm fine. Like, it's obvious to everyone that he is bent over. He looks like he's got a hernia. When he goes over to pick up the shoe that he's lost, he looks like my father, and he says he's fine. So when it comes to injury news, it's a long way of answering, like, I don't know. That injury usually takes 3 weeks. I would expect to see him at some point in the next series.
The Heat want Celtics or Sixers? Not that they have a choice, but if they had one, who would they take?
Well, terrified Heat fans, I think, want the Sixers. I think the Heat want the Celtics because they're built a little bit differently. When the playoffs started, I asked Dwayne Wade, who do you want, Knicks or Sixers? And he said, Knicks. Give me Knicks. Give me the stage. Give me the challenge. Give me some people doubting. So they know they're better than Boston. They know how limited Boston is offensively. And, there would be great joy for the Heat after, being laughed and mocked at from sea to shining sea. Given that LeBron and Wade got together because of Boston, there would be great joy in LeBron and Wade not only finishing Boston's season, but finishing that era.
I see something with LeBron that's a little bit different lately, and maybe it's something different with Wade. And I know we like to say, whose team is it? What I think is there is a better understanding of Wade and LeBron. I thought LeBron played a brilliant game last night, but nobody will mention it because his ability to understand there's a mismatch here. I'm selfless. I don't need my shots. Battier's got to hit threes. Miller's got to contribute. I'm going to set up Dwayne Wade. I just get the feeling this team now understands the brilliance of him and what he does and how he'll make everybody better. And you sort of settle into your role a little bit better instead of saying, hey, Dwayne, your turn. You haven't had any shots now. I don't know if you see it or feel it, but I have, probably in the last, 4 or 5 games here.
I see it. I don't know if I trust it.
What do you mean?
Because last year they did take turns. Well, what I mean is that 3 games ago you would have asked me that question, and I would have told you it's a team falling apart, and they look like they're confused. I mean, it looks that way because one of their guys just made 17 of 25 shots last night. And they've got 2 guys who could go 40 and 10. To save their season, they have 2 different guys who went 40 and 10, and there aren't a lot of teams in the history of the sport that can say that. But I would say that something interesting happened in Game 3, Dan, that hadn't happened before. Every time you and I have talked this season, or anybody's talking about the Heat, the way the burden has been is shot gets taken, Dwayne Wade misses it at the end of the game. The conversation afterward isn't, hey, why did Dwayne miss that shot? It's, hey, why didn't LeBron take that shot? So they got together to share the burden, and it hasn't been a shared burden. The burden has all been LeBron.
Yep.
But in Game 3, when Dwayne had 5 points and yelled at his coach, the avalanche fell on his head for the very first time. And since then, they've both eliminated the Pacers. And so now, for the first time, it's felt like the burden is shared, and something they are doing in this series that I have not seen before. Last year, it was very much in the fourth quarter, the both of them taking turns. I think that matchup thing that you mentioned is something a lot of people miss. I mean, they had Barboza on Wade, and that's an impossibility. And at the end of the Knicks game, the shot that everybody was questioning that LeBron didn't take, that, Game 3 that they lost in the playoffs, they didn't, the choice was LeBron against Carmelo or top of the key isolation. Knicks are going to switch. The last shot is going to be taken by Wade, driving at Amari Stoudemire's bad hand. Which one would you want? I mean, I think matchups always get lost when we're starting to have that conversation about whose shot it should be at the end.
Good to visit with you, Dan. Thanks for joining us.
Anytime.
All right, buddy. Dan Le Batard. Dan Le Batard is highly questionable with his dad on ESPN2. And also columnist for the Miami Herald. What are you guys laughing about over there?
We're talking about, did you see Dwayne Wade's outfit as he went into the stadium? He had a white linen shirt on, and what color pants are those, Seton?
I'm going to go cotton candy.
Ooh. I think it's cotton candy meets salmon.
Little hot pink sprinkled in.
If you put up 41, you can wear it.
Tan leather belt. Looks like some type of Prada or alligator bag.
Well, what about Russell Westbrook? Lost a paintball afternoon there. I mean, it looked like he got peppered with the paintballs there. If you win, you can wear it. It's stylish when you win.